Okay, I'm just going to wait until we get over 100, so we've got a good number to get started with. Perfect. So welcome everyone to the Oil and Gas Council's now 7th big debate. My name is Amy Miller and I'm the CEO of the Oil and Gas Council. There are lots of familiar names as always participating today, but for those of you who are less familiar with the Council, we are a membership organisation with over 85,000 members across the world, and our core mission is to connect senior oil and gas executives with financiers and investors. Usually we do this through a series of conferences, networking events and one-to-one meetings, but we're having to be a little bit more creative at the moment on bringing our community together. So enough about us. As we all know, COVID-19 along with the oil price crash have not only changed the way we can access and consume knowledge, leading us to this debate format today, but has brought big industry questions to the forefront. Today we'll be addressing whether the oil and gas industry can attract the right talent. Before I introduce you to our moderator today, I have a few quick housekeeping rules. Firstly, when the debate begins, each speaker will have just 5 minutes to put their argument across. Once every speaker has spoken, all will have the chance to speak briefly again to address or refute any points made by the opposing team. If you would like to ask a question, you can do so by writing your question in the Q&A tab that you can access at the bottom of your screen. We will take questions at the end, and I encourage you to participate as much as possible. Should you have any technical issues during the debate, please use the chat function to communicate with me directly and we will try and help. Finally, I'd like to remind all speakers and attendees that the debate takes place under the Chatham House rule today, and that our speakers' views may not be 100% representative of their own organisations or their personal opinions. So let me introduce you to our moderator today, Adam Law, Managing Director at ERCE. Since 1994, he has gained extensive experience both as an operator and as a consultant. Adam worked as a geoscientist for Amerada Hess and as a geophysicist for British Gas, prior to joining Equipoise Solutions as a principal geoscientist in 2003. Adam served as a Director of Geoscience at ERCE until his appointment as Managing Director in 2016. He has worked in a variety of basins around the world and has been involved in all aspects of geoscience analysis, from frontier exploration to field rehabilitation. In recent years, he has led the geological and geophysical evaluation of some of the largest discoveries of the past decade. At ERCE, Adam is a project manager for transaction assistance and reserves auditing. So Adam, thank you. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Amy. And can I just say, I'm really looking forward to what I think is going to be an absolutely fascinating debate on a topic that is of great importance to our industry, the energy sector, and also for us at ERC and for me personally, we believe very strongly in encouraging and training early career professionals in the energy sector. So my company and I have a real vested interest in the outcome of this. And on that note, to slightly hijack this, one of the members is present, David and Holly, who will look after the young persons sections for the AAPG and the PSGB respectively, are organising careers talks, and I hope those of you that are members of those young persons groups within the AAPG and PSGB are listening today and come up with this, provides you with food for thought when I come to face you again as one of those careers talks. I'm sort of looking forward to that with a bit of trepidation. So let's move on and meet our panelists. So speaking first of all will be for the motion Deirdre O Donnell. Deirdre has 33 years of upstream oil and gas industry experience. Her initial career was in scientific software development, and following successful completion of an MBA, she established Working Smart Limited, which many of us in the industry know, in 1996, the first online global oil and gas recruitment company in the world. With candidates across 186 countries, Working Smart now covers all energy sectors. In April of this year, Deirdre established book4.com, a consolidated global training and event marketplace for the energy industries. Welcome, Deirdre. Oxana Bristowe is also speaking for the motion. Oxana is the founder and managing director of the executive search and executive coaching firm Oxana Bristowe. Oxana and her team are focusing on board and senior management appointments in the natural resources and industrial sectors. Oxana has personally been involved in over 200 senior executive and non-executive directors appointments. Oxana is a qualified executive coach, and she has developed innovative executive career coaching programs that help clients to achieve their fullest potential and career goals. Speaking against the motion, we have Andy. Andy Cox has been a partner in KPMG for over 16 years and is currently the UK Chair of Energy and Natural Resources, with responsibilities across a range of oil and gas and power and utilities clients. He has worked in over 25 countries during his career in KPMG and specialises in providing M&A advice to corporates, infrastructure funds, major Asian investors, as well as private equity. Notably, Andy is KPMG's global leader partner for BP plc, where he is responsible for a team spread across the globe that provides advisory services to support BP as they execute their strategy to achieve their stated purpose of reimagining energy for the people and the planet. Welcome, Andy. David Eastwell is a geoscientist speaking against the motion. He specialises in rock physics and pre-stack AVO analysis, currently for Icon Science. David has previously worked for TGS, NOPEC and Spectrum Geo. David joined the oil and gas industry in 2012 after graduating from the University of Southampton with a degree in geophysics, and will be graduating from the University of Royal Holloway later this year after completing a part-time Masters of Research degree in pre-stack AVO evaluation of source rocks. He is currently AAPG Europe Young Professional President and is responsible for creating volunteering, networking, careers and skills opportunities for the AAPG student and young professional members. And finally, Natan Battisti is a petroleum engineer who graduated in 2019 from the Federal University of Pelotas in Brazil. He started his career as a business development intern at Newfield in 2017, and in May 2018 joined Premier Oil Brazil as an HSES operations intern. In January 2019, he became Junior Operations Exploration Engineer, and in October 2019 was transferred to London, where he is currently working as Group Developments and Operations Technical Engineer. Natan is also a member and volunteers for the SPE and is co-founder of Ateo Ultimo Baril, an organisation created to support unemployed fresh graduates and students of the energy sector in Brazil. So welcome to all. Now, Amy, before we begin the debate, I wonder if you wouldn't mind launching the poll, please.
Sure. So this is asking the question of the motion today, that the oil and gas industry is not able to attract the right talent. Do you agree, disagree, or are you currently undecided?
Thank you, Amy.
I'll give it another couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can share the results with you. So 53% agree, 27% disagree, and 20% are undecided. So those of you voting against or arguing against, you've got your work cut out.
That's great. So we'll be looking at that again, but without further ado, let's launch the debate.
I can't hear Adam. Adam, I didn't hear that, sorry.
There we go. Deirdre, I wonder if you wouldn't mind beginning the debate and speaking for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. As we have a rich supply of experienced talent already in the industry, I'm going to focus on graduates first. Sorry, just apologize. I'm going to focus on graduates first. I do believe that the ability for oil and gas to attract talent has diminished, and these are my reasons. Since the management of oil and gas companies has shifted from explorationists pre-1999 to bean counters, the mission has been on returning dividends to shareholders. Building a pipeline of graduates has not been high on the agenda. Second, in the last decade, we have witnessed a major global decline in the number of new geoscience and engineering graduates, caused by many factors. One, the cyclical nature of the downturn offers poor stability for all professionals, but especially for our graduates with limited or no experience. Two, we continue to fail to address the plight of our young graduates. Internships have fallen, placements are low, a lack of good mentoring system, funding for MSc and PhDs has declined greatly. 3, our universities, in order to survive, have only now revised their traditional oil and gas course titles and curriculum to include modules pertaining to digitization, which is badly needed, and renewables. 4, activists. Groups are gaining strength. The list of countries that have banned exploration is growing. 4, we've witnessed a huge decline in oil and gas investments, and reversely, a major increase in investments in green projects from governments and private companies, such as JP Morgan, who, for example, allocated $250 billion to clean projects earlier this year. As the energy transition accelerates, we have seen unprecedented cultural and behavioral change across society, especially amongst our younger demographic. They do not wish to be part of what many call a dirty industry. Next, industry fails to have a global PR voice that counter arguments aimed at annihilating oil and gas industry. The ability to attract the right talent, this to me is the key problem. In the main, we recognize the diverse skills of our graduates. They are highly analytical, with a high percentage holding postgrad qualifications, research and trending subjects. They are technology savvy, and more importantly, they are street savvy. They know the value of their talent. And this is where the problem lies for oil and gas. Traditionally, operators work closely with universities and have their pick of the top talent. However, talent today has greater visibility and marketability through social media. Next, our graduates have grown up embracing evolving technologies. Many have taught themselves AI, machine learning, big data, coding, etc. The IT, banking, financial worlds have always been attracted by their analytical and reasoning abilities. However, as a specialist oil and gas recruiter of 24 years, I have witnessed that O&G recent graduates with the required IT skills are now far more marketable across wider industries. So why is the oil industry not attracting top talent? The people reviewing the candidates are not always equipped to recognize the value of the skills on offer and how that value aligns with company long-term objectives. Next, we are too slow to react. Multiple interview cycles for basic entry roles, weeks to interview and weeks to make an offer. Next, pay structure is not in keeping with other industries for top talent. Next, we're still thinking of traditional pay ranges for disciplines. We're not looking at the value the person brings to the company. Next, additional benefits from competitors. There's been a major increase in technology startup companies in recent years, many with share offerings worth 6 to 10,000 on day one, greater flexibility in work hours and conditions, some offering more fun working environments. The WeWork offices now are very popular across IT. Next, more agile organizations embracing greater involvement and contribution and return. Therefore, to summarize, it is clear that oil and gas remains vital for the foreseeable future, with energy demands forecasted to rise by 50% by 2050 and the continued hydrocarbon demand for petrochemicals. It is therefore vital that we refocus, re-strategize and re-innovate, and only then will the oil and gas industry be in a position to attract top talent again.
Thank you, Deirdre. Incredibly strong leading arguments. Oxana, can you top that, I wonder? Your turn. And take us up, Amy.
I just unmute myself. Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm not sure how I can, do better than Deirdre, but I hope so, because I think my focus is going to be slightly different. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much, Amy and her team at the Oil and Gas Council for actually putting this very important topic forward. I think, we during the lockdown, we've seen a lot of webinars, lots of things moved online, and we talk about technical issues, we talk about technology, M&A, finances, and all that sort of thing, but we don't talk about people enough. And I'm very, very hopeful that, you know, this will set the scene basically for us to have more discussions around, not just about graduates, and this is a really good thing. I didn't know what Deirdre is going to focus on. It's good that you're focusing on graduates, because this is not my experience. I don't personally have experience with the recruitment of graduates and entry-level junior positions for the oil and gas industry. So most of my experience is with senior executive and board positions. And now for the past 3 years, I have been coaching quite a bit of people, you know, a number of people who are in mid-career, senior career, and transition from you know, corporate world to non-execs or something, consultancy, or into retirement. So I strongly believe that we have a problem, and that's something that I can support Deirdre at all levels. It's not just at the entry level, and she put some really strong arguments there. But let me start with giving a helicopter view. We're all from the industry, but I think it's useful sometimes to remind ourselves what are we talking about? You know, who are we, the oil and gas industry? Here is what I've come up with in preparation yesterday for this exciting talk. So we are 1.7 billion industry, the trillion industry. And just to give you a comparison, because we cover natural resources within Oxana Bristowe, we work with mining, oil and gas, energy, and industrial sectors. So to give you a perspective, the entire mining and metals industry is around 660 billion. So the industry employs globally 6 million people, according to International Labour Organization, and over 10 times that number of jobs are directly created by the industry. This comes to nearly 66 million people. And if we look at energy mix, you know, why the industry is important. So in you know, we've seen all those spies, you know, in energy mix globally. Oil and gas contributes to just about, you know, around 50%, maybe a couple of percent, just more, a couple of percentages below that. So this is significant. So the world needs a lot of energy, and Deirdre said, you know, what the potential growth is going to be. So, and you know, to me, the pandemic, the global pandemic, demonstrated that energy is the key. So if we have energy and we have food, we could manage things. We move to work from home. We can protect lives. We can do various things. We can live without certain things, but we cannot live without energy and food. So energy is tremendously important, and this is why it's so important. So, and obviously energy fuels economy, world economy. So we need to attract the right talent, and I'm afraid it's not the case. So let me move to my main sort of points for the debate.
Oxana, I'm ever so sorry about this. It's fascinating to hear you bring us into the context of the energy industry needing talent. I think that's very important, but we don't have a great deal of time. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind.
How much time have I used?
Maybe another minute or so, Amy, do you think?
Okay, so if I can quickly cover, I actually didn't realize that this was, I apologize about that, but I created a list and I invite everyone. So look at sustainability. So this is about ESG, Paris Agreement targets, UN Sustainability Development Goals. So if, you know, so I gave it a 4, for example. So then I looked at diversity and inclusion. So these are important issues. I gave it 6, so I created sort of like an attractiveness list. So sustainability, diversity and inclusion, 6. I could go into more details about this. Then I looked at purpose, mission, and values. So as we know, we are moving from the focus on shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. So I gave this 5. Then I looked at well-being and mental health, and that includes a lot of you know, questions around culture, around how we treat people, around people's processes, which I think Deirdre as well referred to in her, and then technology. So on well-being, I gave 6, and technology, digitalization, I think we're too slow. I agree with Deirdre, and we need to move faster. So in conclusion, you know, my average score on my attractiveness list on those key factors that I have looked at, we are about 5.2, but obviously everybody is very welcome to disagree with me, and obviously I would love to dive deep into these very important things, but unfortunately I don't have time right now.
Thank you, Oxana. That's very kind of you, and I'm sure that'll all appear in the Q&A. Now, if we move to the other side of the debate, Andy, would you mind giving us your 5 minutes, please? And you're on mute.
I apologise. What a mistake. Okay, thank you very much, Adam. I'd first like to just take a quick step back and explore what we mean by right talent. Then I want to briefly share with you what I believe attracts such talent, and then I'll conclude. So what do we mean by right talent? Well, look, as we all know, the energy transition means that oil and gas must change. It's got to reinvent itself in this new world. And we're seeing inspirational leaders very much in the public eye, driving that change, making some big statements out there. So as a result, oil and gas companies really are moving into new areas well beyond their traditional upstream. We're seeing what I would call integrated energy solutions, electrification, mobility, of course, renewables, and even smart cities coming onto their agenda. So what does it mean in terms of talent? Well, it means we need different skills. So what is the right talent? What are these skills that we need? Well, in my view, it's no longer just dominated by engineering, pure engineering. These businesses, they're starting to move away from being product-led and thinking much more about the customer. That requires different skills. Of course, IQ stays very much up there, but so does dialing up what I would refer to as EQ. The whole digital transformation is calling on a whole different set of skills. So data wrangling, analytics, intelligent automation. And we hear a lot of talk about agile these days in the industry. So we use phrases like scrums and sprints and design thinking, all areas that were born out of IT and that sector. But actually, if you look, are extensively used across the sector right now and increasing. So the right talent feels very much to me like a different type of talent for an industry in change. And there's also these days universal acceptance that cognitive diversity really matters. So diversity of skills, diversity of experiences. And I guess if you combine engineering skills with creative skills, you start to really drive innovation, which is what's needed right now. And in a post-COVID world, we're seeing potentially the industry needing fewer people. So digital transformation is accelerating, and companies are having to do more for less. And then another trend we're seeing is far more strategic, what I would call strategic partnering. So a realization by the oil and gas industry that they no longer need to have all the skills in-house. So that's what I mean by the right skills. And then what about attracting talent? What is it that attracts talent? Well, in my view, lots of things. But if you look at particularly the generations coming through, and you think about that as a set of people we're trying to attract, to a degree, perhaps they're less interested in the financial aspects. They certainly want meaning in their role, and they want to make a difference, and they want a healthy balance between work and life. But what right now is attracting top talent? And I would point to 3 things. Number one, having a clear purpose and ambition, especially around climate change and the whole ESG agenda. And that's certainly hearing that resonate amongst the next generation of leaders coming through. Second thing, what talent's looking for is a strong commitment to professional development. Then they're looking for exciting growth prospects driven by innovation. And, you know, often there's kind of 3 factors that they're looking for: career advancement, of course, a manager they can learn from, and professional development and training opportunities. It might surprise you, we at KPMG did some research not that long ago around learning budgets in oil and gas compared to all the other sectors out there. And actually, surprisingly, for many, oil and gas is right up there. I think it was ranked as the 4th highest sector in terms of learning budget per employee. The final thing I'd point to is being future focused, having access to leading edge tools and technologies. So technology spend's always been huge in oil and gas, but right now to gain the skills these companies are often cementing long-term partnerships with many of the tech players, and that includes in their wider ecosystem a huge array of startups bringing new ideas, new innovation to what they're doing. And so very much beyond their traditional players that they're working with. So just to conclude, the energy transition that the sector's going through certainly means huge change to the industry, and it absolutely means new skills are required. And with the changes comes great excitement in terms of new business models, innovation, access to leading edge technologies. So together with strong balance sheets, a history of investing for the long term, makes the oil and gas sector, I believe, a hugely exciting, attractive place to work. And that's why the sector can absolutely continue to attract the right talent, people who want to build an amazing, fulfilling and rewarding career.
Andy, thank you very much. David, you're up.
Thank you. And I think when discussing this topic, it's important to understand the proposition. I think it supposes the oil and gas industry is currently trying to attract the right talent, but failing to do so. And importantly, I don't think this is true. I believe we have an abundance of talent, but an industry that's unwilling to capitalize on it. I'm going to talk about this subject from the viewpoint of a student or a young professional. And I'm going to try and cover 4 areas to show that the right talent is there, it's motivated, it wants to work, and the industry remains a good choice for a top candidate. So my first point, the talent is right. With regards to pure geoscience, many of the big jumps in our understanding of earth sciences in recent years have come out of the universities, largely driven by MSc and PhD projects. The Drifters Group has pushed forwards our understanding of contourite and mixed turbidite systems, and dynamic crustal topography is forcing us to rethink everything from sequence stratigraphy to basin modeling. This work is conducted using industry standard software on cutting edge data. On the subject of digitization, I've personally had the pleasure of talking with and working with students, many of which have based their research projects around the implementation of technology to improve and enhance petroleum geoscience processes. Some direct examples include teaching machine learning algorithms to identify carbonate structures, rethinking our understanding of source systems, and we've even seen businesses spin out of universities in recent years that are applying groundbreaking cloud technology to enhance data processing. Many students will naturally use cloud-based software now to write their thesis, automate processes using Python and Java, and data science tools as a natural part of their work. So my second point, the motivation exists. And I'd like to pose a hypothesis here that students who take a year to study petroleum geoscience or a similar industry-related course do so with the express intention of working in oil and gas. A higher education program has fast become the standard for entry, and these courses are very competitive to get into, and with good reason. The students come out with excellent analytical ability and critical thinking skills, as well as industry standard software and practical experience. I don't believe these students are taking a grueling year of study and commit to the expense without an express desire to work in our industry. My third point, I don't believe they're choosing to go elsewhere. The number of oil and gas jobs is linked to oil price, and that's quite clear if you look at the membership demographics of any professional society. And in general, gaps in a specific age group correlate to major downturns. It's no surprise that there's a large gap in the 0 to 10-year experience range, as that coincides neatly with our recently depressed oil prices. Grad schemes over the last 8 years have been consistently cut, limiting the opportunities for young professionals to join the industry. A cursory search of geophysics or geoscientist jobs or similar on LinkedIn will return perhaps 10 to 20 results. Data analyst will return hundreds. I believe this is part of the reasoning why, in our latest AAPG-YP survey, when members were asked on what subject area would they like us to focus our content, the overwhelming response, around 48%, was on careers, easily beating technical content and energy transition. These guys want to apply for jobs in the oil and gas industry. The jobs are just not there for them to apply for. The oil and gas industry still has a good value proposition. Oil and gas remains a very strong choice, particularly, of course, in the areas of geoscience and geophysics, and additionally in engineering. The oil and gas industry has a history of delivering world-class, highly complex, multidisciplinary projects, including, but not limited to, the world's largest floating man-made object, producing oil from fractured basement, and running successful marine operations in environmentally sensitive areas. Salaries do still remain globally competitive, and importantly, jobs remain engaging and enriching from a technical development standpoint. So there is a clear reason to want to work in the industry from either a financial or technical view for an ambitious young professional or student. So, in conclusion, I think it's important when we vote again on this subject to think about the original proposition. I believe the industry can attract the right talent, but it's choosing not to. I've hopefully shown that the right talent exists. It's extremely highly skilled and offers some of the highest caliber graduates in any industry. The talent is keen and it's eager to work, and this is evident by the immense amount of extracurricular involvement many YPs and students do, both out of a love for the science and also a desire to accelerate their career. If the industry wants to attract the right talent, it absolutely can. They just need to post the jobs. And that's
David, thank you very much. A very interesting and very impassioned plea. Now, Natan, I wonder if you can better David.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with David. And good afternoon, everyone. And thanks to Oil and Gas Council for inviting me to this distinguished discussion. And my colleagues in the against to the motion already exposed very good points, and I do agree with most of them. But I would like to explain why, in my perspective, I'm against the motion. I do not believe the oil and gas will not be capable to attract and also retain the right talent. I did a journey from a small town in south of Brazil where there is no oil production, where I used to work in a farm with my family, and I traveled 2,000 kilometers to make my first interview with Premier. So, and there are more Natans in Brazil, 100 and 1,000. But as some people already said, we have a demand in the world, and we need more energy. It's clear. By 2040, is expected the population will grow by 2 billion people, leading to an increase of 37% of energy demand. Fossil fuels supply still around 80% today, and 27% of this mix is coal, and it will be in 2040 21%. And we know that oil is far away cleaner than coal, and in average has less impact. A lot of countries are still using wood as the main source of energy, and many don't have enough access to other sources that not oil and gas. So what will they do? The oil and gas is not just for developing countries. OCDE countries will continue producing and exploring their basins to guarantee their, at certain levels, energy independence. Clear examples are USA and Canada, and of course to preserve their jobs. We can see Japan. Japan is spending millions of dollars researching to develop the gas hydrate reserves offshore. Why, if Japan is not a poor country? The answer for me is energy independence, and it will be always important. Moreover, despite the impact of the coronavirus, I do not believe in radical change in the human behaviors. We will continue consuming most of the things we do today. We did in January, for example. So the result is there is demand for fossil fuels. We will have oil and gas energy companies producing hydrocarbons in their portfolios. In the other hand, there will be even more youth looking for jobs than today. Population growth shows us. The UK youth unemployment rate was 10.9% in 2019, compared to 14% of the European Union as well. In Brazil and other developing countries, the situation is even worse. In Latin America, it was expected to be more than 18% in 2020 before the COVID impact. And I believe that in this 18%, there are a lot of talent with no jobs. An inquiry we did using our volunteer project in Brazil, using our group Até o Último Barril, up to the last barrel in English, showed that Brazil opened more than 100 bachelor degrees courses of petroleum engineering capable to accept semi-annually more than 20,000 students. And moreover, most of these courses were crowded. So it shows me the same I saw in Colombia, not just in Brazil. A lot of very talented people that graduated, passionate for oil and gas industry, and now no jobs. So for me, I can, as a result, I can believe that there will be oil, there will be a good level of oil demand, there will be jobs, maybe different than today, and there will be young professionals look to work in oil and gas. But talking more about Brazil to conclude, Brazil has 27% of unemployed, and most of these unemployed are working in informal jobs. And Brazil has a very good energy mix since the 50s. More than 40% of the whole energy consumed is renewable. Brazil has 15 billion of barrels of reserves, and there is expectation for more dozen billions of barrels yet to be discovered, only in pre-salt areas. And Brazil, incredible is that we have 95% of sedimentary areas non-contracted, and 2 basins with no one well drilled yet. So, and we're still importing billions of cubics of gas from outside. So finally, for us, out of Europe, outside Europe and North America, we don't have an economic reserve as some countries have to say we don't want to produce oil and gas in our country. It's totally different. And most of the world is on the same page. We need to exploit oil, and we need have to generate riches from that, to invest in technology and other source of energy. And I believe strongly that we will have talented people outside the door of oil companies want to travel 2,000 kilometers to make an interview and to be in that industry.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nathan. So we're a little bit behind time, so I'm going to be particularly cruel, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists in turn if they can just think of a couple of sentences for no more than 30 seconds. If there's a point that they want to raise specifically about what the opposing side says, speak now or forever hold your peace. So Deirdre, you have your 30 seconds. And you're on mute, that's 28.
Basically, I agree with so many of the sentiments that have been passed for the opposition party. Looking at David's argument, very strong, etc. And I think what David summed it up for me by saying, our graduates coming in, and I'm looking at our graduates because we have a very strong talent pool of experienced professionals in our industry. But he passes the comment, the jobs are not there. Well, if the jobs are not there, the talent will go elsewhere. And that is the key problem. We're not really going to attract them, and the talent is going to go elsewhere. That's my 30
Really good point. Oksana, could you give us 30 seconds if there's anything burning you'd like to say? And again, remember the mute button.
Thank you very much. Basically, I want to support what Deirdre said. All passionate discussion for against the motion, but the thing is that there are no jobs, and we are, people who want to join the industry, they're seeing what's happening, this, constant volatility, employment dismissals. So people are not really trusting the industry. So if we want to continue growth, we need to really demonstrate why we want talent and why we deserve to have talent and manage it properly, on the people side of things.
Thank you very much. Andy.
Okay, I think the key point here is both Deirdre and Oksana, what I'd encourage you to do is rather than reflect on the past and how has it been, but think about the future. There's such a huge change coming through this industry, and the talent and the skills are going to be different. And that doesn't mean the end of the need for upstream engineering skills and so on. But actually, an awful lot of people with those skills are finding new roles and new ways to apply them in what is quite a different business model and set of business models that are emerging. And in my view, incredibly exciting as well.
Excellent. David.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to reiterate my first point about the debate saying the oil and gas industry can't attract the right talent. And most of the rebuttals have been around, well, the jobs aren't there. But the jobs being there is a solvable problem. Senior people, I'm hoping, who are in the chat and perhaps in the panel, if you want to create the jobs and you put the jobs out there, the right talent is there and they will apply for them. So we can attract the right talent, and the lack of jobs is a very solvable issue.
And finally, Natan.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the problem is there is no jobs. In a poll that we did in Brazil for young professional students using the Untitled Chapter said that 58% of the students that could could be doing an internship now or already as fresh graduates don't have jobs. And so I think the question is not we are not capable to attract talent. The problem is there is no jobs.
I've got a couple of good questions on that as well. So I'm going to thank you all very much, panelists. Now I get to pick on you collectively or in turn with the Q&A that we've been receiving. We're absolutely swamped with questions. Thank you very much. Keep them pouring in. The first one, I think, follows on directly from Natan and David's question. And that is, are any of the panelists recruiting graduates this year? Why don't we start with Andy?
So absolutely they are, and what I would say to you that some of the majors particularly are looking at preserving their graduates and their talent. So I'll give you a specific example actually, which I've seen live, is with BP, where they've, instead of cancelling the internships that they had for a whole load of grads because of COVID, what they've done is actually invested in those and preserved them and enhance them. So I do think that is absolutely the case. And the whole point here is that it's different talent coming in. You know, these companies, and we've seen a number of big announcements of redundancies out there, but there is new talent coming in. So, and that does absolutely involve graduates.
That's great. And for a smaller company, Natan, how do you feel, early career geoscientist? You've mentioned a strength about jobs lacking. How is it within Premier?
Yeah, in Premier, you can say that, for example, this year in Aberdeen, we recruit interns to do their internship virtually. And it's not just Premier to say about my company, but also Norway, Equinor in Norway did the same. And companies in Brazil, also small companies in onshore, are promoting, are getting young professionals and students to make this internship virtually. So I think this is kind of digitalization. This is, I think, the elephant that is the oil and gas industry is moving.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. You're right. So we had a little bit of a problem with our internship program this year, but we are taking interns in through the coming year. So I'm with Andy. You must continue to recruit at a low level throughout so you can maintain the future candidates for our industry. Otherwise, our industry is, to answer 2 or 3 questions in front of me at the moment, cutting off its nose to spite its face. But for those of us that have been here for a bit longer, perhaps I could put this to Deirdre first. Do you feel now that the whole boom and bust cycle perennially turns people away from working in the oil and gas industry?
Completely. I've had a lot of experience of it. So if you take, for example, 2014, we really, our graduate programs, I won't say they ceased, but they diminished dramatically. And then last year, 2019, I started to place graduates for the very first time. And I was absolutely overwhelmed because, as some of the panelists will know, I'm a great advocate of our graduates and trying to encourage them and help them and support them over the years. And it was wonderful for me to start getting graduates into our oil companies and our service companies. But what I found with that is, and hence my argument, there was a lot of too slow, too many interviews, not understanding the value. And graduates were actually, you know, there was 1 or 2 went in for interview. The jobs they were absolutely ideal for the jobs. They got offered the jobs, but they went to startup ITs, and they went because of stability. They went because there was shareholding. There was a career path clearly defined. All the reasons were, and Andy from KPMG said the same. There has to be good, solid career projections. But we are going. So the top talent we are losing, and I'm talking about graduates. They are going to be put off by this instability. And they also, the lack of focus. We talk about these new jobs and these new skills, but there's no oil company coming out and saying, these are the skills that we actually need for the foreseeable future, for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Now, the universities, of course, have all changed their MSc programs, and that's delightful. But we need clearer messages from our industry as to what skills are required.
That's very interesting. Thank you. David, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to follow on from that. So Deirdre mentioned that the industry itself is not telling people what they're looking for. But do you think that training, be it undergraduate, graduate training, on-the-job training, and indeed the sort of technologies that the industry should be celebrating, do you think that MSCs and so forth are training people correctly for the challenges ahead for our industry?
Precisely, and I'm glad you asked this question, because one of the things I think when you have a depressed industries, that we expect a lot from the graduates, and I do believe the graduates are giving that. But fundamentally, as a graduate, your job is to be able to be have as much potential as you can possibly have, whilst having a set of skills that sets you up for the job. That's not the same as hiring a professional. So we need to be careful not to try and swing it too far into what the industry wants right now. Undergraduates, I do think, should remain a broad spectrum training course, learning about the fundamentals of plate tectonics or how drill tools work. When you go into the MSc level, that's when you specialize. Now, again, a lot of the core petroleum geoscience MSc elements, interpretation, basin modeling, those don't go away. But where I think a lot of people are now using to specialize effectively within the MSc is their projects. Every MSc student comes out with the same set of skills as everyone else, but the project will separate you out. And that's where I think we're seeing these skills being embedded into our graduates through projects that use data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or still the core elements, because we still need sequence stratigraphers as much as the digitization guys would like to argue against. So I do think that the MSc graduates are extremely talented, and that the specializations is really coming in the projects. And so I do think we are still producing the right people.
Can I just add something as well?
No, go on, Andy.
What I'd argue as well around all of this, for many of these organisations, they are getting this point, and they are so they are now simplifying massively. So Deirdre, you pointed out about the slow pace of kind of recruitment and the like, but an awful lot of that is going to take time, but it's starting to be addressed. And there are big layers in these organisations coming out, particularly at the senior levels. So the graduates and people lower down the organisation are being pulled through, I think, and I believe it's going to speed up going forward much quicker. So I think we're in the eye of a generational shift right now, and much of this you're going to see playing out over the next few years.
Excellent, excellent. Now, one for Natan, you volunteer for the SPE, and there's been quite a few questions about what role professional bodies can play with young professionals entering or looking for recruitment, or how they should train properly. And so, yes, Andy makes a sensible point that perhaps in 3 or 4 years' time, the world will be your oyster because we'll have had to get out of the way. But do you think if we're not telling people what the industry is looking for, do you think those professional societies might be able to assist? So what role do you think they can play in assisting young professionals and talent in the industry?
That's a great question, because I really believe I've been as a member of SPE since 2013, and as a volunteer, a passionate volunteer, and I could learn during this time that at the SPE, AAPG, and other institutions, they are the connection between the industry, the companies, and the young professionals and the students. And of course, we need to use SPE and the tools and other institutions to connect what the industry wants. So to have a very good communication. I used to say in Brazil, and heard a lot about that the oil and gas industry hardly communicate straight to our stakeholders. So I think we can start to communicate more about our good initiatives, and also use channels as SPE to say to them, look, we are not using anymore some specific tools, or we need more people with soft skills, or something like that, or for example, make partnership using SPE and other institutions, for example, to guide the university to invest more in technology and digitalization and this kind of project, because sometimes the university is quite far away from industry. So I think we should, or perhaps we shall use SPE to connect companies and the universities.
Excellent. A very obvious but very popular question. Companies will see huge cuts in their workforce over the next decade with mass retirement. Why aren't companies preparing for this now? Andy, you're experiencing this in BP. You mentioned that they're looking for a continuum of recruitment, but but do you think we're underselling our industry? Do you think we're underselling the point to graduates? And do you think we will reap what we sow in 10 years' time?
Yeah, you know, I think absolutely the opportunities there. I think although there are big changes going on, it's recognizing just the change in the industry. And I think this is the key point underpinning all of this is, you know, we've all got to start to realize it's not purely about upstream oil and gas anymore. You know, there is a much broader play there, and it's going to change gradually over time. But that does require not just the graduates coming through, it also requires talented people at all levels to be recruited. One thing I've noticed as a change that's happening more and more is, and I mentioned when I was making my case about partnering with others, because you don't necessarily need to recognize don't need the skills in-house. But there's a real drive now I'm seeing for recruiting experienced hires as well from other industries even. You know, these are, when you get into some of the downstream and you talk about fuels retail, for example, actually the skills there, it's all about the customer and it's all about real deep retailing expertise. Well, that doesn't necessarily sit in a traditional oil and gas company. Mm-hmm. But again, as these evolve, you're going to see a different set of demands coming through.
Thanks, Andy. I think we've got time for one final question, and it's to you, Oxana. Paul asks, to attract and indeed retain the talent we have now, how important is it for us to demonstrate that we are an industry working on the energy transition, that our industry is part of the solution for climate protection and repair? How might we demonstrate that?
I think it's extremely important, and it's unfortunate that I couldn't have time to actually go into more details on my my index, and I think I kind of agree with everybody, you know, points, even though I right now I say the industry is not really attractive, and I demonstrated why it's not. But I also agree with other speakers that we need to look forward, and it is an exciting industry, and it is an exciting opportunity to do things better, but we need to move faster. We need to be more agile. We need to speak about the value that the industry actually brings, and so that people can feel that they're contributing to something in a meaningful way, and they can have a sustainable careers and fulfilling future for themselves and for their companies.
Excellent. I think we've got time for just one more question. I'm going to ask the panel if they can comment. Maybe Deirdre might have the most experience of this from what she's seeing in placing graduates, but an observation with which I agree is a number of students in geoscience classes are dropping year on year. Is that the industry's fault? Are we just not making the industry look attractive? Or is that geoscience as a whole losing its pool of graduates and technologists and specialists in the future? Remember, you're mute.
A very interesting question, and having a child doing A-levels and being involved in our school on PTA. I think there's many factors here. One is we are not pushing our STEM subjects through our schools, and we're not really, you know, Andy talked about participation. I think industry needs to be participating with our schools at GCSE level to try and educate them about what our industry is about, and we're failing to do that. Secondly, I think when they do maths degrees and you know, physics degrees or not, they are having other opportunities in the industry. The market has changed. There's a lot of different positions in different industries that are here today that weren't here 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So they're having more choice when they do come out. So it's twofold. We need to be encouraging them to go into these subjects, into the STEM subjects, so they can get into university. And we also need to be participating with our universities more, so that we should make sure that we attract them into our industry. And that can be done through societies. It can be done directly through the universities. Brilliant. So those two angles.
Thank you. And finally, for somebody right at the beginning, David, you get the closing remark on that question.
Yeah, I think this is a general comment towards attracting young talent towards our science in general. I like to joke that geophysics is the slightly less cool cousin of astrophysics or engineering or mechanics. All those other disciplines have their rock stars. They've got their Brian Coxes and Neil deGrasse Tysons going out there showing the wonders of the solar system. I think that we as geoscientists and geophysicists and engineers, agreeing with Deirdre here, that we need to go into the schools, A-level classes, and just promote the love of our subject, because it's a fascinating subject, how the world works, how the earth works. We need to find our own rock stars and just put them out there in front of people. So I think that's something that all of us can work towards, and I think agree on.
That's fantastic. The questions are pouring in, but I'm so sorry, we're going to have to stop now. Amy, I wonder if we could have one final look at the polls.
Yeah, so I'll give you the same amount of time again to vote this time. So remember, you're voting to say the oil and gas industry cannot attract the right talent. So I'll just refresh your memories on what we had before. 53% agreed with the motion, 27% disagreed, and 20% were undecided. So let's give it another second. Okay. So agree have won, but as a percentage, disagree have got more votes than they had beforehand, and we've managed to change 13% of people's minds around that hadn't decided previously. So well done to both teams.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, we haven't got a great deal of time until the end, but I'd just like to, before Amy wraps us up, I'd just like to say thank you to all our panelists for really impassioned opening arguments and debate, for answering the questions so coherently when having them sprung on you. And I'd like to also thank everybody that's participated in our online meeting today. The questions were intelligent, bright, and poured in, and it was very difficult to select from them, so thank you all very much. So what have we learned? Well, is it a downturn in recruitment because of macrocyclicity, or is it a long-term trend? Is training correct or not? Are we beginning to transition correctly and developing the right skills for those people that will inevitably be part of it? Are we showing the world as a whole that we're not just a bricks and mortar industry, but we are at the cutting edge of incredibly complex and multidisciplinary projects? And that's surely what the transition needs. And to quote David, where are we going to find our rock stars so we can explain the wonders of our own solar system to those young graduates to come and join us? And with that, Amy, I hand over to you.
Thanks, Adam. Well, I think you're all rock stars. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking part. And Adam, thanks very much for moderating so beautifully. Much appreciated. For anyone who wants to have a look at this again, or wants to send this debate to any of their colleagues, peers, or friends, you can download. You'll receive it automatically, a download, to be able to watch this on demand. So look out for that in your emails in the next couple of hours. We're taking a short summer break from the debate series over the next couple of weeks, but we'll be back on the 6th of August at 2 p.m. UK time, this time looking at answering the question: the oil and gas industry has previously failed to embrace digitalization. So one to look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks very much again to all of our speakers, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you very much,
Take
Amy.
care. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Amy.